Hey friends, this is Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and today this video shows the first full week of the Three Rivers Challenge. That is the pantry challenge that I've been talking about for the last month or so, both here and on Instagram. This is a pantry challenge I do every year, and this year I'm going to be documenting all of my meals throughout the challenge here in a video format on YouTube. So to make that easier for you, I have broken up this video into days, and they'll be labeled. If you check in the comments, I'll have a comment pinned that gives you the timestamps for when the different days are broken up so that you can skip ahead. There'll be a menu posted that shows you what the meals are for each day. So if you don't have time to watch the whole video, because it does get quite lengthy when you're sharing a week's worth of meals, you can just skip ahead to the ones that interest you, and you can find those timestamps there. Also in the description with the menu, I will have links to any recipes that I share here in my meals that might be helpful for you. I have a lot of those recipes saved in my Instagram stories and in my highlights on Instagram, so I can just link those here for you so that you can find those if you need them. So I also in the description want to include a list of all of the other wonderful channels here on YouTube that are participating in this challenge using the Three Rivers Challenge hashtag. So if you would like to expand your community a little bit and find some more encouragement in doing your own pantry challenge, that is a great way to find some channels to follow and subscribe to. They have been also sharing all of the creative and wonderful ways they're using up their preserved food and their harvests, and giving you helpful hints and tips to make your pantry challenge go more smoothly. So with that said, I'm going to jump right into sharing my meals, and hopefully you enjoy this. It's just me and Benny this morning. Everybody else is still asleep. We're working on breakfast. We have some scrambled eggs here, some leftover potatoes from last night's dinner, and then we have the rest of the vegetables from the tray that we put out on New Year's Eve. Just some green onions and some bell peppers left. And then I'm cooking up, this is 2 pounds of kind of a sage sausage. Oh, that's starting to burn. I better pay attention. I'm just going to put everything into the pan, and we're going to have kind of a breakfast scramble. Here's what that breakfast scramble looks like. It's just the sausage, the eggs, and those veggies. And then I just salt and peppered the top a little bit, and then I'm using the last of the store-bought bread. I very rarely buy store-bought bread, but during the end of December while Adam was home, I wanted to have a break from baking and just kind of spend more time with the family, so we had some store-bought bread in the house that needs to be used up before it goes stale. So we're just having toast, and then this is peach vanilla jelly. I canned this last August. This was made with Pomona's pectin, so it's low sugar, and I think I actually used honey to can that. So they've had a lot of sugar over the last few days, so that's a kind of a lower sugar option here for their toast. And Benny over here is already digging into his toast. It looks like he's just licking jelly off the bread. Is that yummy? All right, I'm going to wake the rest of the kids up and get them fed. Wow, the big kids who slept in. You guys were sleepy, right? While they're, it's almost 10 o'clock. They've gotten used to sleeping in over our break. We got to wake up early here in a couple days and get back to our normal routine. You guys going to be okay with that? Yeah. All right. Well, while they're finishing up their breakfast, I've got to get lunch started. It's a Sunday, so that means throughout the Pantry Challenge, Sunday is soup day. It's really convenient because I can just get everything in a pot, let it simmer on the wood stove while we're doing church, and then kids are usually hungry immediately after church, so we can have soup. So today what we're having is the leftover ham steaks and vegetables from last night's dinner. I'm going to add a jar or a quart of canned sweet corn to it. And then I found this quart of, it looks like ham and bean soup that was in the freezer. And I had it thawing in the fridge last night. It's still a little slushy, so I'm going to have to work to get this out of the jar. But all of this is going to go into my pot with just a little bit of water and salt and pepper, and it should make a delicious soup. Let's see how it turns out. Alright, so I got all of those ingredients put into my pot here and just kind of topped it off with a little bit of water for extra liquid. This is going to taste amazing. It's got all the drippings from those ham steaks last night, all the flavor from the peach salsa, whatever was in that ham and bean soup. I love these meals because you'll never be able to replicate them. It's just a mix of flavors. Soup, you can't go wrong with it. It never tastes bad. So This is going to sit here on the wood stove while we do church and have some family worship time, and then we'll come back. Usually our worship time lasts until about 12:30. The kids are hungry immediately afterwards, so it's nice to have soup. We try to do this every Sunday so that it just makes it less stressful for me. It's ready, it's warm, and I can just scoop it into bowls and they can eat right away. So after simmering a couple hours on the wood stove, our soup is all done. You can see there's some of the veggies from last night's dinner in there, that canned corn. There's some beans in there from the ham and bean soup, lots of meat. Just a really delicious mix of flavors that I think turned out great. And then we are serving it with a mix of crackers that are left over from New Year's Eve, so the kids can put that in their soup. Just getting dinner started, and so we're making shepherd's pie. I guess it's not shepherd's pie because I'm not using lamb. I am using beef. So whatever it's called when you make a shepherd's pie with beef, that's what we're having. So I've got my potatoes boiling for mashed potatoes, and in here I have 2 pounds of ground beef plus 1 white onion and then some chopped up garlic. And I'm just cooking this all down. And then over here I have the veggies I'm going to use. I'm going to use a pint of our canned sweet corn. I'm going to use, these were raw carrots that are in our storage fridge out in the garage. We have carrots and apples being stored out there. So I just chopped up some carrots from storage, and then I'm using these frozen green beans that I bought because we were not able to grow any green beans last year to preserve because the mice ate every seed and little sprout that came up. So these are going to be the veggies in the shepherd's pie. My meat is all browned, and to the meat I added a little bit of arrowroot powder to kind of thicken it up. That took any of the grease that was on it and kind of thickened it. And then I added some parsley and some seasoned salt and got that all in the bottom of the pan. Now I'm going to mash my potatoes. The secret to good dairy-free mashed potatoes is bacon grease. So I use this in place of butter in my mashed potatoes, and it gives it really good flavor. So I'm going to get my mashed potatoes all ready to go, and then I'm going to get my veggies spread on top of the meat. I'll put the mashed potatoes on top, and we'll get it ready to bake. The veggies on top, now we put the mashed potatoes on. And now it'll go in the oven on 350 for about 30 minutes. It's all done baking. There really is no graceful way to get the shepherd's pie out of there without messing it all up, but that's how it looks. So we're going to go ahead and eat some dinner. Today for breakfast we're having pancakes. I had 3 cups of flour and 3 cups of almond milk soaking overnight to help soak those grains. And to it I'm adding 4 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, 1 teaspoon of salt. I have 4 eggs here. These are fresh from our hens. I didn't need water glass today. I had enough. And I'm doing 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And we're going to get that all in the bowl here, and I'm just going to put it in the mixer this morning. And then I'm planning to bake these instead of flipping them. So I just put a little bit of olive oil to coat the bottom of my pan. Baking this will save me some time this morning. Normally I flip pancakes for 30 minutes or so. So baking it will help. I'm going to put some of these frozen blueberries that I preserved last June, and we're just going to top half of it. Some of my kids like blueberries and some don't, so we'll just have half with some blueberries stuck on top, and then those will bake in nicely. And we're going to put this in the oven and let it bake on 350 for about 30 minutes. And then with the pancakes, we're going to have some canned pears. I always save the juice from my pears. I drain it from one jar into another, and then once I accumulate enough juice, I can make things like homemade jello or popsicles with it, or even use that fruit juice in other baking recipes in place of water for a little extra nutrition. So don't waste any of the water from your canned fruits or veggies. There's valuable nutrition in there. All right, my baked pancake is all done. We have some leftover sausage scramble from yesterday, some leftover hard-boiled eggs, and the canned pears, and then I get my maple syrup from Sam's Club, so we'll just drizzle some maple syrup over the top of the baked pancake. And there we go. Got some happy kids here. They will enjoy this breakfast. So we do harvest some of our own maple syrup here from our own property, and I'll take you guys along for that when we do it in February or March this year. But we do not harvest enough for our yearly needs, so we do have to supplement with store-bought. Lots of leftovers for lunch. We've got apple slices, we've got pickles and olives from New Year's Eve, along with some salami, hard-boiled eggs, and crackers. And then with the crackers, I've got some Braunschweiger. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. It's a German word, but it's a kind of liverwurst, and we serve it on crackers with mustard. This is one of Adam's favorites, and the children love it too. It's a great way to get that organ meat in the kids. So a nice little lunch, very easy. And then tonight for dinner, we're having ground bison. This is from a local bison farm here. I've got 1 pound here, and I'm going to cook it in a pan with some elephant garlic. We're just going to slice this up and let it saute. I've grown elephant garlic. It's the kind of milder than garlic. It's somewhere between garlic and onion, so it gives kind of a little bit of onion, a little bit of garlic flavor. And I did not thaw my bison meat in time, so we're just thawing it and cooking it together. We're going to also chop up a green pepper and stick that in. We had this green pepper left over from our veggie tray. We didn't use it. And then we're going to make some pasta sauce. We're going to use 1 quart of home canned tomato sauce. I have these 2 little packages. This was store-bought pizza kit. We used the crust during a time of morning sickness, and my kids did not like the taste of this sauce. They're used to a thicker sauce on their pizza. So we're just going to throw that along with oregano and basil. We're going to throw all that into our sauce just to get it used up. Gracie's my helper. She's doing a great job of getting the meat and the veggies all browned and sauteed. Now she's going to pour in our sauce. That was a jar from 2020 that never got used up. I didn't can much sauce last year. And then she's pouring in that pizza sauce and our herbs and all of our spices. I tend to not follow recipes. We just kind of season to taste. Add enough salt and pepper, and we keep tasting it until it feels right to us. Okay, and then for our noodles today, I use rice pasta. This is Tinkyata brand rice pasta. I buy it in bulk from Azure Standard. I store it in this old pretzel container that was from Sam's Club, and it works perfectly. So we just grab out as much as we need for a meal, and we get that cooked. Rice pasta is kind of tricky. There are lots of brands I've tried before that just sort of turn to mush, but this Tinkyata, I'm probably not pronouncing that right either, but this Tinkyata brand is the best rice pasta that I have found. Now one day I bought a pasta machine, we're going to learn to make our own rice pasta, but for now we are using store-bought. And this is how, when we mixed our noodles and our sauce together, this is how it looked. Gracie did such a great job helping me, and the kids really enjoyed this meal. Got it all plated up, and we'll sprinkle the top with nutritional yeast. This is a dairy-free kind of cheese alternative. It gives that umami cheese flavor to the top of the pasta. Tomorrow is our first day of school, and the morning's going to be crazy, so I'm getting a head start and making 2 loaves of my applesauce loaf. The recipe is in the description. I put all of the dry ingredients together in a bowl, and then we add the wet ingredients. In place of butter in this recipe, we are going to use some olive oil here, and then I'm going to take some home canned, this is pear sauce, and I like to can it in these pints because it's perfect for 2 loaves in this recipe. I need 2 cups of applesauce, but today we are using pear sauce. This is also from 2020 I needed to use up. And then we're out of eggs, so we're going to use some water glassed eggs today. These were from March of 2021. 3 dozen that month, and they turned out great. You can see that the yolks get kind of runny, but they taste and smell just fine, and they will do the trick. Very grateful to have this for my baking. So my loaves are all ready for tomorrow to be baked, and once again, that recipe is in the description if you're interested in it. This is one of our family favorites. There's how it looks done. Kids will really enjoy this. And here we are, bright and early that next morning, and I'm so grateful that I baked the night before so my breakfast was ready, so I could just sit and sip some hot tea and wake up slowly instead of trying to rush around and get breakfast done on our first day back to school after a really long break. So making breakfast the night before is one of these self-care things that I do for myself just to make my life easier and my days go more smoothly. Lunch on Tuesdays is always Taco Tuesday. Today I've got 2 pounds of ground beef cooking up, And this is my homemade taco seasoning. I've made this in a video before for you, and I'll link that in the description so you can see what's in it. Here are our toppings we're using today. We're using some salsa, the rest of a jar of home canned sweet corn. We've got a jar of some home canned pickled vegetables, tomatoes, peppers, just some other items that they'll put on top. This is some home canned peach hot sauce. It's so delicious. I will do way more of that next year. And then this is a beet kraut that my mother had gotten for us last month that we're just trying to use up. So that'll be something crunchy in place of lettuce on our tacos. So that is what we'll be using as toppings. Our meat is all cooked up. And then normally I would make homemade shells, but it's a busy day since we're back to school today. So we're using the last of our store-bought taco shells today. From here on out, we're going to have to make our tortillas. Now we're just going to get our tacos assembled. This is one of my kids' favorite lunches. It's an anchor in our week. We always have Taco Tuesday. They can always count on that, and they really look forward to it. My rice was soaking since last night for my dinner. This is just some jasmine rice, and we're going to have it tonight with some salmon for dinner. So I'm going to drain that, and then adding to this rice to cook it. These are some drippings from a roast that I have left over. You can see all that great gelatin. It's full of delicious nutrition. We're adding those drippings along with some water to our pot to cook this rice. We'll just stir it around, let that cook up, and we'll serve that as a side dish with our salmon tonight. Don't waste those drippings. They're so good for you. Add so much extra flavor. And then here's our salmon. I get my salmon from Wild for Salmon. I do pay for the salmon, but they did give me a coupon code in the description that you can look for to get 15% off. So check that out. It's great quality salmon. We love it. And then to season this, we're going to use some Old Bay seasoning. Adam buys this every year for a shrimp boil, and it sits back there, and I need to find ways to use it up. So this is the perfect opportunity to try to get some of this out of my pantry. So I'm just going to sprinkle this pretty liberally on top of my salmon fillets. And then we had some leftover lemon from his shrimp boil that I just sliced up to add on top for some lemon flavor. And we're just going to bake this on 350 in the oven. And then for our veggie side dish, I have some leftover veggies. We have some cauliflower and broccoli from our veggie trays. We have this was way too much to fit on that big veggie tray on New Year's Eve, so it's just been kind of sitting in the crisper drawer, and this is an opportunity to use it up. And these were leftover veggies from our shepherd's pie the other night. We're just going to put all of this in the steamer just to get it out of the fridge and use it. Steaming your vegetables, when I did my research on nutrient retention, steaming is the method of cooking vegetables that retains the most nutrients. So great way to serve your veggies. Our rice is nice and cooked. I'm going to take that off the heat and just let that cool down here while the rest of our food cooks. There we go. We got the rice all done. I've made a really big pot. I always make too much rice because I know that I will use the leftovers in other meals throughout the week. And it's just a way to save me time if I just make one big batch at once, and then I can portion it out for my other meals. Veggies are steaming and smelling delicious. And then now that they're done, I'm just going to pour the rest of that canned corn over top and mix it around together. And there we go. Just a bunch of veggies to use up in the fridge. This is what you do in a pantry challenge. Just use what you have and make it work for your meal. And that's what the salmon looks like, all done. Nice healthy meal after lots of junk food my kids ate on New Year's Eve. We're trying to get some good nutrition back in them. And I think that they will like this meal. Once again, I am baking the night before to make my morning go more smoothly. We're going to use these frozen carrot pucks. I freeze shredded carrots in muffin tins in the fall just to make things easier for winter baking. I need 8 cups of carrots. I'm sorry, 4 cups of carrots for my recipe. So I got 8 pucks out. Each puck holds 1/2 cup of shredded carrot. So what we're going to do is just stick it in the oven, and it will the oven was warm from making dinner, so they just kind of thawed, and then I can mash them down, and I have shredded carrot already ready for my baking. It's so convenient. And then the recipe for this will be in the description. These are healthy muffins. We're making them with raw honey, cashews, raisins, the shredded carrots, lots of good stuff for the kids to fill their bellies and get them ready for a morning of school. This recipe called for yogurt, but since we're a dairy-free family, in place of the yogurt, we're going to use some pear sauce, just a half a cup, and that'll be kind of that sticky, wet texture that the yogurt would give it and help the muffins still hold together. Just throwing it all in the mixer, and I'm going to bake the muffins tonight, and then when we wake up in the morning, all I have to do is just pull the muffins out and once again sip my hot tea, and breakfast is all ready. It's so convenient. This is a gift I give myself. I can't encourage mothers enough to do this. If you bake for breakfast, try to get your breakfast baked the night before once the kids are in bed so you can enjoy the baking in a nice quiet house, get it all cleaned up, and then it's ready in the morning and you can just kind of relax and ease into your day. So as you can see, little Benji really liked these muffins. I made 2 dozen muffins, and they ate all of them except for, I think, 4 or 5, so they were a hit. And now David is watching and babysitting the little boys for me and playing with them so I can get the rest of my meals prepped for today. Such a blessing to have big helpers. We are making chili today. And so I have cut up one raw onion here. It's a white onion. And then with that, I'm going to cook some 1 pound of salt and pepper pork sausage from the pigs that our friend raised for us over the summer. To that, I'm going to add a cube. This is a frozen cube of fermented hot pepper pulp left over from making hot sauce for Adam. And this is a cube of pureed garlic scapes. So all of that will saute together in the oven. And then also to my chili, we're going to have a quart of canned pinto beans, 2 quarts of canned tomatoes. This is some dehydrated sweet corn that I did over the summer in a video. And we're going to put that in the chili. That'll rehydrate wonderfully. We've got cumin, we've got chili powder, and some salt. And this is going to just make a wonderful chili that can simmer all day while we're doing school. So I've got, as you can see, that dehydrated sweet corn, dehydrated, freeze-dried vegetables. They just have such good texture when you add them to soup. I prefer them much more versus canned vegetables. Like canned corn softens quite a bit through the canning process, but this dehydrated corn just maintains the firmness of the corn kernel and is just a much better texture. So I encourage you to look into dehydrating or freeze-drying some of your veggies for your winter soups. The meat, onion, garlic, and peppers are all cooked up. We're just going to dump this into our pot and let this simmer throughout the rest of the school day. So lunch will be served as soon as the kids are done doing their school. Messy house, but a happy house. Okay, and then I'm also prepping my dinner. I've just threw 2 chuck roasts into the crock pot with a cut up onion, and this is some Azure Standard Italian dressing seasoning. I'll link it in the description. This is one of our favorite seasoning blends. We make salad dressing for it. We also cook our meat like this with it. All right, busy morning getting school done. The kids are just finishing up, and I've got Gracie stirring our chili, which is done. And now we're going to serve that for lunch with some crackers. We're still trying to work through these New Year's Eve crackers. Adam went a little crazy at the store and bought one too many boxes, so we have a lot to use up. And that's how the chili turned out. My kids don't like their chili too spicy, so the amount of pepper and seasoning that I added is just perfect for them. If I made it much spicier, they wouldn't eat it. But as you can see, they're quite excited to dig in. The girls and I are eating dinner late because we were at gymnastics. That roast cooked down with some Brussels sprouts and leftover mashed potatoes from the other day. And the boys and Adam all ate while we were gone. We're home late, and just the girls worked up quite an appetite at their gymnastics class. So they're going to finish that up. I had just thrown those Brussels sprouts in with the roast as it was finishing cooking. This morning I'm going to make fruit cobbler for breakfast. Yes, you heard that right. Fruit cobbler is a breakfast food. It is not a dessert in our house. So I will link the whole recipe in the description below. We make this for breakfast because it really is no different in ingredients than something like pancakes. In fact, I find that there's less sugar in this because they're not pouring a bunch of maple syrup over the top of it. So we're just adding our homemade almond milk. I'll show you how I make my nut milks in a future video, but we do make that from scratch here at home from almonds and cashews. Now at the bottom of my 3 pie dishes, I did triple this recipe for my kids. I pour a little bit of olive oil in the bottom of each pie dish, and then I'm just going to divide the batter that I made up between the 3 dishes. And then on the top, I'm putting sliced apples on one. We have frozen blueberries and blackberries on the other. These were from last year's garden and food preservation. And then these are some canned pears on the other one. Once again, I drained that pear juice. I'm slowly accumulating enough to fill a jar to do something with that juice. And I'll take you along when I do. And then I did sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon on the top of both the apple and the pear cobblers. This is how they turned out, and then the kids just kind of pick and have, a piece here and there of whichever one that they desire. This is a staple in our house. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that we usually eat fruit cobbler once a week. I like it because it's really quick. I can get the batter mixed up in probably 5 minutes, and then just throw it in the oven while we're busy in the morning doing other things. It cooks up, and it's always a hit. The children will devour all of this, and there will be nothing left, which is always the goal. Try to use it up instead of having a bunch of leftovers. You can use any fruit in this. Peaches work great, any kind of berries, whatever you would like, and it'll make a nice little fruit cobbler for you. We do sometimes also have it for dessert, but mostly it is just for breakfast here. Like I said, they devoured it all. I don't eat gluten or sugar. I can't on the diet that I am on. So just the 7 kids devoured all of those in no time at all. And so now I'm going to get ready for lunch. We're working on some bread. I'm going to double this recipe and then divide it into 3 smaller loaves in a sandwich kind of bread pan. I'm just getting my yeast activated. And then I also just went shopping out in my garage. I got a pound of sausage to use for dinner tonight in a pizza. This is sweet Italian sausage. That'll go wonderful on our pizza. And then I also went and dug into our storage apples. Adam's grandpa used to own an orchard when he was alive, and Adam still goes to that orchard every year and gets our storage apples. These are in our garage fridge out in storage. And as you can see, some of them are still perfect. We got these in early October, and they're still wonderful for eating months later. But some of these were sauce apples. Ooh, there's a yucky one. Some of these were not storage varieties. I had intended to make applesauce out of them last October, and I ended up having a miscarriage and kind of got sidetracked. And I also, while I was busy, didn't necessarily monitor the temperature of the fridge well. So some of these turned a little wrinkly and froze in the back of the fridge, but that's fine. We'll get to that in a second. For now, I need to finish this bread. So once again, there's the recipe. I doubled this and added all of the ingredients into the water, yeast, and honey. We're getting this mixed up, and I'm letting my mixer knead and mix my bread for me. This is such a time saver. I'm so grateful for these labor-saving devices that make my life as a mom so much easier. Back to the apples. So I went through and I found all of the ones that are still good for raw eating, and I separated them out. They're going to go in the crisper drawer. The rest of these frozen, wrinkly ones we are going to turn into sauce. They are just fine for eating. I got them all washed, and we're just going to slice them and core them and get them in my great big stock pot here. And as you can see, that even though they're frozen, the kids are still eating them. They're still grabbing slices. Got my pot all full, and I put a couple inches of water on the bottom. I'm saving my cores to give to the chickens. And normally I would make vinegar out of my cores, but I have enough, and the chickens will enjoy that treat. As you can see, that they look perfectly fine. They just, the texture will turn to mush as they thaw if I don't turn them to sauce. So this is a great activity for today. I love how the house smells when you're making applesauce. So this will be a nice treat. And then my mixer is done. I'm just hand kneading to kind of finish off this bread. This will be put in front of the wood stove. It will do one rise in the bowl, and then I'll separate it out into my greased loaf pans, and it will do a second rise while we're doing some school lessons, and then we'll get it in the oven, and it will be ready for lunch by the time we are done with school. There we go. Time to do some schoolwork with the kids. And my apples have been cooking down while we were doing school. They smell wonderful. As you can see, I had them cooking with the skins on. We are just going to mill the skins out here shortly. That's how the bread turned out. Now, my children ended up helping me shape the dough into the loaf pans. And this is one of the hazards of letting children help you bake. So they're not the most beautiful bread loaves, but they taste amazing, and I think they will do the job. Just going to slice into it. I probably should have let it cool a little more, but we were running late with school and we just need to get it done. So there's the bread. We're going to serve it with some freezer jam that I had thawing. That's peach freezer jam. I also have a little peach vanilla jelly left over in the fridge. With that, I've used sunflower seed butter because we can't have peanut butter with Gabriel's peanut allergy. We buy this big tub of it from Azure Standard in bulk, and my kids go through this. This is our quick lunch sandwich of choice. We're going to have some raisins. We've got some leftover canned pears, some olives, more of that beet kraut that we just can't seem to use up, pickled vegetables, and it's just kind of a quick snack lunch today. That's what a plate looks like. One of the kids made their plates, and this is everything that they chose. And it'll fill bellies. It'll get the job done. Now we need to work on milling this applesauce. So I always have kids who want to volunteer for this job. For some reason, they find using our old-fashioned mill here very fun. Oh, I've got a helper cleaning up after lunch. How wonderful. All right, we're just putting the apples through the mill. We're going to strain it, and in doing so, the sauce will push through the bottom, and all of the skins and any seeds or anything like that will be left behind. I love this tool. I know there are electric versions that do the same thing and probably do it faster, but I like having this old-fashioned mill. This was given to me from a friend. She used to make a lot of applesauce, and then once she hit her mid to late 70s, she wasn't doing it anymore and decided she would gift me this mill, and I love it. It's one of my favorite kitchen tools. We use it for tomato sauce, applesauce. If you ever find one of these at an antique store or at a yard sale or something, pick this up. It's a helpful tool. All right, I've got some empty jars, so we're going to go ahead and can this applesauce to use for a later date. But the leftovers, what didn't fit in my pot, the kids are enjoying with some cinnamon, and I'm just going to dump some cinnamon into what we're going to can as well. Go ahead and flavor this applesauce. I don't always add cinnamon, but decided to do it today. It's been very cold in Ohio this week, so some nice warm cinnamon applesauce is such a comfort on these cold days. We're going to get the rest of the applesauce all canned up. Applesauce needs to be water bath canned for 20 minutes if it's in a quart-sized jar. Always remember to wipe the rims of your jars. That will help you have a good seal. And if you get mineral deposits on the outside of your jars from your hard water, make sure you add a little bit of vinegar to the pot. All right, and then we're having pizza for dinner. Thursday is my night off from cooking. The big boys always make dinner for me on Thursdays. They make their own pizza sauce from scratch using tomato paste and onion powder and oregano and honey, I believe, and salt and pepper. Here's their pizza crust recipe that they use. Also a very well-loved recipe card, as you can see. But they are going to triple this tonight. We need 3 pizzas. So that's what they are working on right now. I'll have a link to this recipe in the description if you want to try it out. They like to put onion powder and oregano in their dough. Let's go over some of the toppings. Once again, we cannot get rid of this beet kraut. We're going to add some to the pizza as well. the last of those pickled peppers. I'm getting them out of the fridge. They are going on pizzas tonight. Lots of pickled veggies there. My kids might be strange, but they love pickles on pizza. They like pickled okra, olives, lots of onion. These are the toppings that they chose. They also love anchovies, and that's a great source of calcium. And then they have that pound of sweet Italian sausage cooking that they are also going to put on their pizzas. And this is just the one meal a week usually that I don't cook. And I look forward to Thursdays every week because it allows me time to just sit down and play with my little boys during the time that I would normally be cooking dinner. So I love that my big boys bless me in this way. Thursday nights are their boxing night. They go boxing with their father, and so they enjoy loading up on some pizza before they go. It's looking good. Now, we are a dairy-free family. We can't have cheese on our pizza, but my kids are used to that. We have tried some of the vegan cheeses that you can buy at the store, and we really don't like the taste, especially for how expensive they are. They just aren't worth it. But my kids love it this way, as you can see. Everybody's huddled by the wood stove, trying to stay warm, eating their pizza. Another anchor in our week, like Taco Tuesday. Thursday night is pizza night here. So now that it is Thursday night, I'm just hanging out with my little boys while all the big kids are gone, getting ready for Friday morning, almost the end of the week. We are ready for the weekend. All right, we're having buckwheat cereal, and I had the buckwheat soaking overnight. Buckwheat doesn't necessarily need to soak in order to improve the availability of the nutrients in digestion, but it does make it a lot easier to cook in the morning. It's faster when the buckwheat is softened, and it's a good way to rinse it. So what I do is I drain out the soaking water after they soak overnight before I put it in my pot to cook, and that gets any impurities and stuff out. Now, to the buckwheat in the pot, we're going to add the rest of this pear sauce that was in the fridge, and then a little bit of water. And then we're also going to add some cinnamon, and then we're just going to let this simmer on the stove for a while. This is a replacement for oatmeal for us. I do not have a lot of oats in storage, and we usually have oatmeal once a week. So this week, instead, we are going to have this buckwheat cereal. And it has a much more earthy flavor than oatmeal. It's still pleasant, but it is distinctly different than oatmeal. We're going to add some cashew milk to it, and that had a little vanilla in it, and we're going to add some maple syrup to it. So what I do is once I have the buckwheat all cooked up, I just pour a little bit of the milk over top of it, and then we pour a little bit of the maple syrup over top of it just to taste. And then that's how the kids eat it. The milk also helps kind of cool it down because it's really hot coming off the stove and they can't eat it right away. That is what we're having. And I will be honest, this isn't my children's favorite breakfast. They much prefer oatmeal and do kind of complain when I make this, but they still eat it. They know it's good for them. And the big kids love it. And Benjamin actually ate it all. But my middle children, the girls and then the Levi and John, did not prefer it. We had to run to the orthodontist, and it was so cold. When we got home, the kids were begging for hot cocoa. So I went ahead and made some cashew milk. We're going to add some sugar and some cacao powder to this. I don't really have a recipe. We just kind of do it to taste. So to this cashew milk, Gracie is just adding some cane sugar to it, and then I'm letting her kind of scoop in. She went a little crazy here with the cacao powder, and we had a little more than we usually do, so it was thick, but it still tasted delicious. And when you're going to top it with some kind of marshmallow fluff to sweeten it a little more, that takes out some of the bitterness of the extra chocolate flavor. So what we do is we just add that and stir it around. We get it heated, and that cacao powder will kind of melt in there. We're going to top it with freeze-dried marshmallow fluff. I have a marshmallow fluff recipe that I'm going to link in the description. And what I do is I pipe it into these little shapes and I freeze-dry it. And then I have shelf-stable little marshmallow fluff bites. And all I have to do then is take my hot cocoa and grab a handful and toss them into each mug. And they kind of melt down into a sweet, delicious, sticky texture. It's not exactly like store-bought marshmallows, but it is wonderful. And this marshmallow fluff was made with beef gelatin, maple syrup, and vanilla. Those are the only ingredients, so they're a much healthier alternative to store-bought marshmallows. Save me a lot of time using the freeze-dried ones today versus having to make, it takes about 15 minutes for me to make a batch of marshmallow fluff from scratch. So I'm grateful that I had these on the pantry shelf because this was just kind of a last minute idea here to make the kids some hot cocoa to warm them up when we got home. And that saved me a whole lot of time. So here's the truth. Let's see how they like the freeze-dried marshmallows. I think it's a hit. John wants his sister's cup. Let's see how he likes his. Oh yeah, I think he likes it. So also for lunch today, we are going to make a trail mix. Trail mix is something we do quite often. Here we have some freeze-dried blueberries, some pumpkin seeds, some dried cranberries, and some cashews. Sometimes we add chocolate chips or shredded coconuts or whatever other nuts. We have some almonds in the house, raisins, any kind of dried fruit. And the kids just like to kind of mix it together into a bowl and then they pick from it and snack with it. We are having another snack lunch today for lunch, just using up leftovers. It's a Friday and I wanted to clear the fridge out a little bit before the weekend. And so honestly, these snack lunches where we just clear the fridge are some of my kids' favorite lunches because they get to pick a little more of what they eat versus me making one hot meal and there not being much of a choice. So today they're going to have their hot cocoa. We have some leftover pizza. This was from last night. There's some of that trail mix. We have some apples they can have, some of the leftover bread, and some butter and freezer jam, and then a little bit of leftover Braunschweiger, just enough for a couple of the kids to have it. And that's what they're going to have. Okay, and then for dinner, I'm going to use up the leftover rice. Remember, I made a ton of extra rice, so this is what was left over. And then I have leftover roasts from Wednesday night. And together, we're going to turn this into something delicious. I'm just winging it here. We're going to figure it out. I'm going to add a quart of beef broth from my pantry shelves. This is beef broth I did last fall. And that beef broth did have a really strong onion flavor, if I remember correctly, so that'll be great. That's the roast. Oh, David's cooking biscotti for breakfast on Saturday, but I'm going to dump the beef broth into my pot with the roast and kind of try to break that up. We're going to use some freeze-dried green beans and freeze-dried peas, and we're just going to shake this in. Like I mentioned before, freeze-dried or dehydrated vegetables just add great texture to your food. If I were adding canned green beans and canned peas to this, or even frozen, the texture would not be the same. There's something about the freeze drying and the dehydrating, freeze drying in particular, leaves such a pleasant texture where the vegetables still have a bit of their firmness. They're not completely cooked down. And since they didn't thaw like they would frozen, they retain more of that texture. Okay, so I have that mixed around. We're just going to dump our rice in here and make this into some kind of beef and rice. I promise it's going to taste better than it looks. We still need to add a little bit more. All right, it needs some garlic flavor. I've got this garlic scape powder. These were frozen garlic scapes that I freeze-dried, and then I just powdered them into a powder. Garlic scapes are the flowering part of the garlic plant that still have a very mild garlic flavor, so I like to add this to food. It's not an overpowering garlic flavor. It is very mild. All right, and then for dessert, we're going to make an apple crisp, except it's going to end up being a cherry crisp. And I'm ignoring the top half of my recipe, and I'm just going to double the bottom half here of these dry ingredients. And in place of butter, we're going to use olive oil. And this is going to be the topping for my crisp here. When baking, using olive oil as a butter replacer, I always suggest that you use regular olive oil. It has a much more mild flavor. If you use extra virgin olive oil in your baking, you're going to get that really heavy olive taste, and it might affect the taste of the baked goods. So I always use regular olive oil, and I buy it from Sam's Club in bulk. And this is our main butter replacer in any recipe that needs melted butter. Now I'm browsing. I've got apple pie filling, pear pie filling, peach pie, but I think I'm going to decide on cherry pie filling for my crisp. And I'm going to use 2 pints. I preserved this last summer, so I just put the 2 pints in the bottom of my pie dish, and then I'm taking the crisp that I just mixed together, the topping, and I'm just going to mix this. I think I need 2 hands for it because I'm doing a terrible job of this. So I'm going to set the phone down. There we go. I'm just covering the top, and then this is going to go in the oven and bake while dinner is finishing up. There we go. That's what it looks like. Yummy, yummy. And that's how our beef and rice turned out. It's one of those really ugly comfort meals that doesn't look good, but oh, it tasted so delicious. My kids devoured this. They ate that entire pot up. And Adam and I, of course, helped, but all of this was gone. And then this is what the crisp looks like when it comes out of the pan. The cherry pie filling was a little waterier than some of my other pie fillings. I had tried a different recipe this year, and it didn't hold up quite the same, but it's fine. It's still delicious, and the children loved it. A nice little treat. Okay, friends, that's it for this week. So at the beginning of the challenge, it's mostly using up a lot of the fresh stuff that we have in the fridge. And then as all of that is used up, then I start moving on to looking through my cupboards and finding hidden items and things in the back of the freezer that need used up. And things start to get a little more interesting toward the end of the challenge when we have to get a little more creative and find some substitution. So it'll be fun to watch how this evolves, how the meals tend to change throughout the course of the pantry challenge. So hopefully you enjoyed this. If you have any input on how I can make sharing the meals easier to follow along, just leave that input. I welcome it in the comments. And if you would prefer that this video would be shortened into a shorter video posted on Thursday and then another shorter video on Sunday, I could also do that. Just leave input in the comments and I'll kind of gauge what you guys would prefer, the shorter videos broken up twice a week or one long video just posted on Sundays. So all right, friends, I'm really enjoying following along with everybody who's using the hashtag #3riverschallenge. Just such a wonderful community of people. It's so inspiring and encouraging to see everybody that just kind of has this same goal to reduce their food waste, to use what they have, and to just get creative in the kitchen. I love that there is a community out there of people that are like-minded and that find this kind of challenge interesting. So thank you for everyone who is participating. All right, friends, I will see you next week.